for organizing and preparing the conference. I wanted to take as little time as possible because I'm looking forward to the discussion and the dialogue that we'll have after this response. So just allow me, I promised that I'll only take 10 minutes. So I'm timing myself now. Thank you for your insightful contributions to our fifth session, Betty Cernol-Macan, Stefan Rothlin, and Leonardo Becchetti. Echoing Betty McCann at the beginning of the session, I also feel overwhelmed with the material that we have taken up, the insights that we have drawn from. But as a response, I'd like to embed my response as a kind of at least coming to terms with this new paradigm of economics that our symposium is dealing with, insofar as the fifth session is concerned. And I hope that this response provokes us into a rich conversation later. So to begin, it is clear, I think, that shareholder primacy, or the alternative name, the profit maximization only motive, is the bad guy in our symposium. He's the devil. This clarifies our mission. We need a new paradigm in doing business as against this bad guy. But I'd like to offer a provocative question. And the question goes, just how new is the new economic paradigm that we are seeking? Because on the one hand, at least to discuss this question about the newness, on the one hand, we are not alone in this search for and deepening of a new paradigm. We have just recently humanistic management that's based in Fordham University. For several decades already, Catholic social teaching in business with the vocation of the business leader, the Benefit Corp or the B Corp, UN Prime as well. The social enterprise movement is strong in my university. CSR, conscious capitalism, the SDGs, and we can go on and on. Yellow economy, from what we heard this morning, etc., etc. Now, our symposium bears this out. We expressed a variety of normative claims, all with the aim to dismantle and undermine that old paradigm of profit maximization only motive. Please take note that I am not dismissing our seeking of a new paradigm by suggesting that it is not new. Instead, I'm calling attention to the plurality of voices that are trying to figure out and make way for that new paradigm, from spirituality to philosophy, from finance, ethics to governance, from legality to civil economics. Our symposium represents the plurality very clearly. On the other hand, we sometimes associate this old paradigm with neoliberal economics, as Stefan mentioned in his opening remarks yesterday. But economics has a history before Smith and Ricardo. There are two examples I'd like to bring up that I hope will capture our imagination of just how broad, how deep the history is. A 16th century monk, I'm sure many of you know that it was a 16th century Franciscan monk that invented the double entry accounting method 2 centuries before Ricardo and Smith. And second, even before that, in the first 2 centuries AD, there was already a strong sense of the common good in early Christian communities. And the economy of communion reflects that business model, which Edmond spoke about right before lunch today. By the way, the term common good appears only 7 times. The term common good appears 26 times in the New Encyclical, and solidarity appears only 17 times. Perhaps there's a reason for this, and perhaps the reason is that the common good is a fundamental impulse that we can appeal to in the new paradigm. It is one of the most intuitive and natural concepts for our species to unite around. This new paradigm is actually a more all-encompassing paradigm historically. Neoliberal economics is, if we actually take a step back, and I hope it is, it's really just a small blip in the history of ideas, just 2-3 centuries of So this quotation was striking for me when Christine Lauenberger quoted Galbraith today, when she said, "What is the perversity in the human soul that causes people so to resist so obvious a good?" So in this particular, at least with this taking a step back from the question about how new the new paradigm is, I wanted to share to provoke us into a discussion by sharing three insights, gathering what we have heard in the fifth session. Number one, I think it's a disservice to our mission to be dogmatic. If dogmatic means insisting on an unum argumentum, a single argument that is superior to all arguments, and then debating and arguing over that. Christoph Stuckelberger was insightful when he called attention to how polarized our world is today, particularly in the phenomenon of ideological isms. So the insight I wanted to bring up is, let's cultivate a unitive, not a divisive intellectual disposition. And I think the cultivation is something that we are seeing very clearly already the past 2 days. Second, at least from my personal experience in the past decade, teaching, researching, consulting, I've sat in one or two board meetings in publicly listed corporations, I've taught professional, and so on and so forth. No? I've realized the need to be sensitive to the difference between conversion and preaching to the choir. Conversion is something that we do for precisely the people who represent those who need a new paradigm. And often I've found myself at least struggling with preaching to the choir, that I don't really need to convert, I don't really need to persuade, because we're really on the same page about the common good. So in the second point, I wanted to call attention to our real audience. That the real audience for the new paradigm is not each other, but those who do harm. So ethics scandals, environmental degradation, absurd and scandalous economic inequality, and so on and so forth. Our new paradigm should be directed primarily to them. Third, I wanted to say to end that we need not reinvent the wheel in this new paradigm. So the ethical and social psychology practices at Silliman University, as Betty pointed them out, the humanistic, economic, and legal tracks, as Stefan described them, and the importance of generativity and advocating for vote with a wallet praxis, as Leonardo shared. They are brilliant articulations of this new paradigm, as were the previous presentations. And I feel much richer after this session. So in this case, I wanted to end with this point, that our task is really in this mission of conversion, of making sure that the first order of business is to stop doing harm, and we advocate that insight. It's really to find like-minded advocates among ourselves to have a greater impact in the way we teach, in our teaching, in our research, what the formulations, the way we formulate questions, research problems that have impact, in our advocacy when we write op-eds, when we prepare video lectures, in our consultancy when we're invited to speak about ethics or sustainability in board meetings, and even in professional education. So that it's really intervention, and the optimal throughput of ethical interventions is really what I would like to invite us to think about measuring. So intervention and the optimal throughput of ethical interventions. Jenny, is it okay if I share, I think I have time. It's not yet 10 minutes. Can I share a picture? There's a picture that I'd like to end with.
Sure.
I'll see if I can share a screen. There's this, in Matthew, in the Gospel of Matthew, there was this warning, there was a stern warning that the Gospel says, beware of the false prophets who came to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. The metaphor here obviously is of a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they're clever and they want to deceive us. I'd like to imagine us in at least when we think about the new paradigm, to reverse this metaphor and to think of us as sheeps, and we have wolves clothing. Because the truth is, in order for us to have an impact, uh, for for businesses to stop doing harm, first to have impact is to be more clever than the wolf. And to be more clever than the wolf, I hope this image captures the point there. So thank you, Jenny, for the opportunity, and thank you, Stefan, for the invitation.